Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to discuss about the transportation across the plasma membrane. So, transportation in all living cells, substances may pass across the membrane with or without the expenditure of energy. So, what do you mean by expenditure of energy? Means ATP is required or energy is required, or in some kind of transportation energy is not required. So we'll study in this transportation across the plasma membrane. There are two types of transportation, that is passive transportation and active transportation. Passive transportation is the transportation of substances across the plasma membrane. This is a cell and this is a plasma membrane. This is a plasma membrane through which the substances may enter into the cell and move out of the cell. So this is the transportation through which the substances may enter and move out of the cell. That is passive transportation and active transportation. What is passive transportation? The movement of substances across the plasma membrane with the concentration gradient, that is, it will move from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Passive transportation means movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration. It is called concentration gradient. Moving from higher concentration to the lower concentration is called concentration gradient without the expenditure of energy. Without the expenditure of energy. In this, it means energy is not required for the movement of molecules from into the plasma membrane. Passive transportation, in which the transportation will take place from higher concentration to the lower concentration without the expenditure of energy. Now, what do you mean by higher concentration and what is lower concentration? Means if the molecules is more inside the cell, if the molecules, more molecules are present inside the cell and then the outer environment, then the movement will be outside, means moving from higher concentration to the lower concentration. If inside the within the cell the concentration of the substances will be more inside the cell, then it will move outside. If the concentration will be less inside and more outside, then the movement will be from higher to lower concentration. Always the movement will be from higher to lower concentration. Next is active transportation. Now, what is active transportation? Active transportation is movement of substances across the plasma membrane against the concentration gradient with the expenditure of energy is called active transportation. Active transportation means movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration. Means it is against the concentration gradient, For this, energy is required with expenditure of energy, or you can say energy is required for this process. Active transportation means what do you mean by active transportation? What happens in this? If in the cell the movement will be against the concentration gradient. If there is more molecules inside the within the cell and less outside the outside the cell, then how the movement will take place? From lower, here the concentration is lower and here the concentration is higher. What is that? Here the concentration is higher inside the cell, concentration is higher, and here the outside the cell the concentration is low. So the movement will take place from lower concentration to the higher concentration. For this process energy is required, that's why it is called active transportation. By the expenditure of energy ATP, this process will take place, that's why this process is called active transportation. This process is against the concentration gradient. Concentration, what is concentration gradient? The movement will take place from movement will be from higher concentration to lower concentration. This is called passive transportation. And movement will be from lower to higher concentration, that is called active transportation. Energy, in this no energy is required. Now next we will see the types of transportation. Types of passive transportation, that is two types, diffusion and osmosis. These two are the types of passive transportation. Now we'll see what is diffusion. What is diffusion? The movement of substances. Diffusion is a process of movement of substances. From higher concentration to lower concentration to spread uniformly in the given space is called diffusion. Uniformly in the given space means what? Diffusion will take place, the molecules may be solid, liquid, gases, and the movement will be in the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration. So here the concentration of molecules is higher. Here the concentration is higher and here the concentration is low. So the movement will be across the membrane will be from higher to lower concentration. So movement will be like this. So this process is called diffusion. It can be gases, liquid or solid. So I'll give you an example of how the metabolic gases diffuse in our cell, CO2 and oxygen. In our body, oxygen is required for the oxidation. We get energy by the breakdown of glucose. So the oxygen will helps in the breakdown of glucose. So oxidation will take place. Oxygen is required. Glucose plus what will happen? It will form CO2 plus H2O plus energy. Glucose oxidize in the presence of oxygen. Glucose oxidize in the presence of oxygen and it breaks down into carbon dioxide, water and ATP. So if the concentration of carbon dioxide will be more inside the cell, then what will happen? And outside it is less, the concentration will be less. What will happen? It will move outward. if the concentration of carbon dioxide after the process of oxidation, it will be more inside the cell and less outside the cell. So it will move outward, and the concentration of oxygen will be more outside and less inside the cell, so it will move inside. This process is called fusion. Now next we'll see the osmosis. Osmosis is defined as the diffusion of water or solvent across the selectively permeable membrane from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Defined as the diffusion of water or solvent across selectively permeable membrane from the region of higher concentration to lower concentration till equilibrium is reached. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is if the molecules will be less this side and this side more, the concentration will be higher this side and inside the cell, and outside it is less. So equal amount of molecules will be both side. When it is reached, that is called equilibrium. When the concentration will be equal in both the sides, then it is called equilibrium. So examples of osmosis: absorption of water by plant roots, and second, absorption of water by unicellular freshwater organisms. Example is absorption of water by plant roots. Now we'll see the types of osmosis. There are two types of osmosis, that is exosmosis and endosmosis. Exosmosis and endosmosis. What is endosmosis? Endosmosis, the entry of water inside the cell, into the cell. The water will move inside the cell. And exosmosis, movement will be out of the cell, withdrawal of the water from the cell or system, water into the cell. Movement across the plasma membrane, that there are two types of movement, that is passive transportation and active transportation. Passive transportation will be osmosis, diffusion and facilitated transportation. And active transportation, vesicles, protein pumps, that is called endocytosis and exocytosis. We'll see what is facilitated transportation. What is the difference between diffusion and facilitated diffusion? We'll see here the difference between diffusion and facilitated diffusion. See, what is diffusion? The movement of molecules from an area of higher concentration to the lower concentration, and in this energy is not required. In facilitated, what happens? The movement of substances will take place from higher concentration to the lower concentration through the transport protein present in the cell membrane is called facilitated diffusion. There are three types of solution, that is That is, first one is hypotonic solution. Second one is isotonic. Third one is hypertonic. So what are the three different types of solution? Hypotonic solution means the solution is dilute. Dilute means what? There will be less solute and more water and less solute. Means what? The concentration will be the solution will be dilute solution. First I'll explain what are the type of solution. Isotonic solution means what? The external solution has the same concentration as the cell content, and hyper solution will be the external solution has more. In this hypertonic, more solute, less water. That is, now we'll see what is hypotonic solution? Means what the external solution in this, you see, this is a normal hypotonic. This is a solution in which cell is kept. The external solution is dilute. The external solution is, this is dilute. This solution will be dilute. Means what? Less solute, and the water concentration, here the water will be more, and inside the cell the water will be less as compared to the solution. The content of water will be lower inside the cell. Means what? Inside the cell the water content will be less than the outside. I hope you understand. The concentration of water will be more outside. In this solution, the concentration of water will be more than inside the cell. Inside the cell, the concentration is low, and outside the cell, the concentration is high. So what will happen? The movement will be where? From higher concentration to the lower concentration. Means what? The water will move inside the cell. The cell membrane allows the movement of water, and this phenomena is called endoosmosis. Endoosmosis in the hypotonic solution. Now next is isotonic solution. In this what happens? The concentration of water outside the cell and inside the cell will be almost equal. So there will be no movement. Little bit movement of water will take place inside, and water will move outside. So almost you can say the movement will be there will be no movement. Very few little movement of water will takes place in this. The external solution has the same concentration as that of the cell content. Therefore, the water content is equal on both sides. The amount of water going inside and the cell is equal to the amount of water coming out of the cell. Therefore, there is no net movement. No net movement of water. The cell size will remain the same. Size will be same. In this what will happen? The cell will swell up because of the movement of water inside. Endoosmosis will takes place. And in this hypertonic solution what will happen? The concentration of solute is more outside and the water is less. And the water as compared to outside the cell, in water content will be more inside the cell, and the water content in the outside in the solution will be less. So the movement will take place outside from higher concentration to the lower concentration. In this what will happen? The cell will shrink, and this process is called plasmolysed. Plasmolysed means what? The cell will shrink in this solution. And in this what will happen? There will be exosmosis. Exosmosis will take place. Cell shrinks. Now what is plasmolysis? Plasmolysis is the process of contraction. The plasma membrane will contract due to the loss of water. The cell will shrink due to the loss of water. That is called plasmolysis. The process of contraction of the protoplasm of a plant cell and is caused due to the loss of water in the cell is called plasmolysis. And what is deplasmolysed? Deplasmolysed is the reverse of plasmolysis, by which the normal size of a protoplasm is established by the entrance of water into the cell by the endoosmosis. In this what will happen? There will be deplasmolysed. I hope it is clear. Thank you.